Hello and welcome to another episode of The Corner Office from the Corner Office in City Hall. I'm Dan Ginden alongside Mayor Nancy Stevens. Mayor, it's been a little while since we've been sitting here together.
Well, you left me out on my own last month to just, I don't know what to do without starting off with you first.
Well, sometimes you got to push the baby bird out of the nest
I know.
and see if they can fly
I
or
flew.
not. You did. You flew.
I flew by
you flew
myself.
Very well.
Thank you.
Well, a couple things that we want to talk about today before we bring on your guest. And first thing is the superintendent news. We now have Mary Carlson, who was in as an interim, and now that's what? I'm going to let you take it from there.
Well, what has happened is, obviously, everyone knows that Superintendent McGann resigned in January, effective, it would be effective May, it's 19th or 20th, right around there. We put in Mary Carlson, who is the principal of the high school, as interim superintendent immediately, and she's been doing a fantastic job. She had to jump in. I mean, talk about baptism by fire. She had 3 weeks to put together the school budget, and she did a fantastic job. Once the school budget was complete, she was able to have a little bit, take a deep breath and kind of look at some changes. She's proposed a reorganization. All this was going on, and we had given her an agreement that she was going to serve as interim superintendent until June 30th. Mary's going to retire June 30th of 2010. The school committee had charged me with talking to the consultants and setting up a timetable of kind of a plan for doing a new superintendent search. In talking with the consultants, going back and forth and looking at what was going on in the Commonwealth, there's over 48 searches going on right now for a superintendent in the Commonwealth. 48 different searches, or if not more, obviously limits your potential candidate pool. In talking with the consultants, and Mary came in, she's got the respect of not only the school committee, her colleagues within the district. She's knowledgeable. She's really proven herself over the last couple of months. And we kind of took a deep breath and said, we've got someone here. The consultant said, if you have someone in-house who's doing a good job, maybe now's the time to say, take a breath, put her in for 2 years. We go back out next year, like the fall of 2009, start doing a full-fledged search, get someone in so we can have a couple of months transition. But when you have an in-house candidate that is doing very well, and with the candidate pool being so diluted because of the number of searches, it really made sense, and it was really our consultant's recommendation that we do that. I went to the school committee, had proposed it about a month ago. They authorized me to talk to Mary and see if she was even interested in this, because this was something, obviously, until the committee had agreed to it. While I last week was in Washington, the school committee met, and they agreed and voted to give her the 2-year contract. We have to work out the details of that contract, but she does have an agreement in place until June 30th as the interim, and then a new contract will be in place for 2 years. And we, again, will go out for a search next fall, 2009.
Not a bad lady to have in there while you're looking
No, you know what? I
So-
have the utmost respect for Mary. I think she's done a fantastic job, and I think she has mixed emotions about taking the position, but she's doing it. She's taking one for the team. She really is. Her heart, her passion lies with the high school, but she knows that she is so dedicated to this community, to this district, that she's willing to do it at a personal sacrifice. I mean, she really loves what she does at the high school, and she does a great job. And for her to say, the last 2 years before your retirement, boy, talk about taking on a new position and really working up until the very end. So I think, on behalf of the entire committee, I'm so glad that she accepted our offer, and I'm thrilled to have her to work with. It's really been a pleasure to work with her the last couple of months.
Great.
Yeah.
I'd be remiss if we didn't take a moment to discuss the Mayor's Charity Ball. It was once again very successful, and you picked the perfect person to be the recipient of the Humanitarian of the Year award, Peggy Ayers.
She was great. She was very surprised. Yeah. I have to say, for the 2 balls that we have had, charity balls, I've been able to surprise the recipients, so that's been really a great thing. Linda Ossing 2 years ago, and then Peggy. One of the greatest things, there's certain things that you really enjoy about this job. I mean, I love my job and what I do every day, but there's certain perks, and that's being able to, the Humanitarian of the Year award is one of them, because it's great to recognize. I've always looked, when the nominations have come in, for the unsung hero, someone that's not out there doing it for any type of recognition. We all know the people that are out there that do great things, but they always seem to be getting the recognition for it. It's someone I want that doesn't get the recognition for what they do, the unsung hero that does so many things. When I started, I didn't know half the stuff that Peggy did. I mean, I did know some of it.
I don't think anybody did.
I know, when I started, you know, it's funny because people said it was the first time they'd ever heard the nomination letter read. I couldn't have worded it any better, and it listed everything that she had done. So to me, it just made sense to read the letter and let everybody know the passion. And I thought the letter was so well worded. I did get multiple letters, but that was the original letter I had gotten. And it really captured the essence of who Peggy is and her dedication to everybody else and with putting herself last. And it was great. It was really a lot of fun. We raised money. I'm so thankful to everybody. Bobby Kays and Linda Ossing, who, against the third ball that they have chaired, the entire committee for everything that they have done. It was a great ball again, but more important, we raised a lot of money for the charity fund. The charity fund has been getting so many requests lately with the economy the way it is, the foreclosures. That charity fund does a lot of great work, and I'm so grateful to have the opportunity to be that person that has this charity fund. You know, the funds are used at the sole discretion of the mayor, the way the trust was set up, and the requests that I get every week are heartbreaking, and it really is great to know that this community comes together to help those that need the additional assistance, because these are hard times. And when you hear somebody, I know I told the story the night of the ball, we got a call Christmas Eve, that the family that didn't have any oil in their tank, and it was Christmas Eve. And you know, just a call from me to the oil company saying I guaranteed the payment, and I had the money in the charity fund to do it. I was able to call them and say, you know, fill their tank. And they were able to have heat for Christmas. I mean, that's something so basic. They were able to have heat. So I'm really glad. Again, I thank everybody. I thank the people for coming out that night. You know, everybody has been pulled in so many directions, and to take the time out to come to an event like that, to participate in the silent auction, the raffles, everything like that, it really was great.
Yeah, it was a terrific night. And before we take a break and I move myself out of the chair, I want to talk a little bit about something I'd theme as a Jimmy Stewart movie. Instead of Mr. Smith goes to Washington, Mayor Stevens went to Washington.
Yes, I did. Actually, this is something I started 3 years ago when I came into office, and it was actually a phone call from Senator Kennedy the day after the election when I was first elected. Called me the next day and said to me, congratulations, and you know, you really ought to get to Washington. It's a good thing to get to keep up with what's going on and get a chance to come down and meet with different people. And I took that literally, and you know, once I was in office, had gotten to know Congressman McGovern very well. Actually had known him before, but got to know him even better working as the mayor, and talking about the treatment plants and applying for some grant money, and he was the one that suggested to come down. He'd put the appropriation in. I'll put it in, but you have to sell it. So myself and the Commissioner of Public Works, Ron LaFreniere, who is actually going to be our guest.
That's right, nice segue.
Coming up, nice segue, is going to, we went down, and this is our third trip down to kind of sell the community and advocate for some funding. So it was great, but it was a twofold trip, and I know we're going to get into it. I'm going to get into it with the commissioner in terms of talking exactly about it. But we were able to put together a meeting down there with the EPA and a lot of people from Massachusetts and the Mass delegation. So that was exciting. It was really great to have all those people in a room. I sat down and we had this meeting in the Rules Committee room, the House Rules Committee room. It's one of those rooms you see on TV, and Congressman McGovern's sitting up there, and he said, "Oh, well, Mayor, come sit up here with me." And I'm looking around going, "No, I'll sit down here." But I did. I went up and sat with the congressman, and Mayor Sullivan from Holyoke was down there also, so he and I were able to sit up with the congressman, and it was a great meeting, but we'll talk more about it in the next segment.
Yes, all right. We are going to take a quick break. When we return, Commissioner Ron LaFreniere will be in this seat. You are watching Corner Office on WMCT-TV.
Obesity in America is at an epidemic level. During the last 30 years, the rate of childhood obesity has tripled.
Childhood obesity involves much more than simply being overweight.
So what can we do to help our children?
Plan family exercise. Take the kids to the park.
We can limit the snack or junk foods kept in our homes.
Go for a family walk or bike ride, or simply throw the ball around the backyard.
Together, we can make a difference in the health and well-being of our children.
Welcome back to Corner Office. I'm Mayor Nancy Stevens. Joining me now is our Commissioner of Public Works, Ron LaFreniere. Commish, how are you?
Afternoon, Mayor.
Wanted to have you on to talk a little bit about, we've been out there for years talking about these federally mandated upgrades to the treatment plants. Let's just do, it's been a while since we've talked about it. Let's do a little bit of an update or overview of what we're talking about. I think everybody keeps hearing these large numbers and what we're going to do, but exactly what is it that we are mandated to do with both of our treatment plants?
Well, for the viewers' information, we actually have two wastewater treatment plants in the community. We have a treatment plant on our east side and a treatment plant on our west side.
Now that does make us unique, correct?
It does, and it's predominantly driven by our topography. We're a community that has high elevations in the middle of our community and low elevations on both our east and west ends. So sewer design being what it is, that is, it all flows downhill, we really need to have two plants at the two ends of the community.
Okay. So we're under a federal permit to upgrade our plants. Explain a little bit about what the upgrades involve.
Yep. All publicly owned treatment works, POTWs, in the country operate under what is called a NPDES permit program. NPDES is an acronym that stands for National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System. And for years and years, going all the way back to the 70s when our plants were first built, we have operated under those permits from the federal government. There is a second component to the permitting system known as the State Water Quality Certification, which is administered by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, the Department of Environmental Protection, DEP. So it's actually a two-step process as far as the permitting goes, and it is a 5-year permit that we receive for each of the plants, and every 5 years it comes up for renewal. At the end of our 5-year permit renewal back in approximately the year 2000, the federal government and state government proposed to reduce certain permit limits at our, well, originally it was our easterly wastewater treatment plant. And those permit limits were so stringent that it was going to result in significant costs to upgrade our plants in order to meet those permit limits. And for a number of years after those initial permit limits were imposed, the city appealed those limits and really entered into a negotiating period with the permitting agencies to end up with a permit that we believed we could comply with over the long term.
One of the reasons for the appeals was that we believed as a city that there was not the technology available to meet those limits. Am I correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
One of the things we're required to do is meet our permit limit each and every day of the year. And while some of the technology 7 or 8 years ago may have been able to meet those permit limits under certain conditions, we were never comfortable that we could meet the permit limits each and every day. And the consequence of that would be that we could be potentially fined significant sums of money, $25,000 a day in some instances. And because of that, we just could not accept the terms and conditions of those permits.
So we fast forward to 2006. We get to a point where it's just as I'm coming into office where the EPA is pushing to pull the permit and issue a permit modification. And we had major discussions about, serious discussions about what we were going to do about the appeals.
Yeah, just prior to your first term in office, we had entered into an agreement with some of our neighboring communities and actually formed a consortium known as the Assabet River Consortium. All of the communities in the consortium had treatment plants which had or contributed to plants that discharged to the Assabet River. And so the focus from a permitting standpoint centered on the west side of town, where initially our issues with the permitting agencies were on the east. We began really focusing on the design of the upgrades at our westerly wastewater treatment plant in conjunction with the other communities who were also seeking permits to discharge to the Assabet.
And we share capacity we own and operate the Westerly treatment plant, but we share capacity with Northborough.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we started negotiating for a new permit and ultimately decided that we were going to drop the appeals back in spring of 2006, I believe it was.
That's right.
And one of the reasons we decided to do that was because of the issue of capacity on the west. We could not grow, we could not expand because we were out of capacity at the west plant. So while initially our issues were with EPA on the east plant and the discharge to the Hot Brook, we have decided to put the west plant upgrades first. When we talk about the upgrades and we talk about discharge limits, I don't think we've made it clear exactly what they're talking about in terms of phosphorus, for example. It's the amount we can discharge. Can you explain a little bit about that and the discharge to the Assabet River?
Historically, we have had permit limits for different chemicals that were allowed to leave our plant after the treatment process and go directly into the river. Over the last 10 years, the permitting agencies have determined that one of the major problems in our riverways throughout the Commonwealth is with nutrient loading. And one of the predominant nutrients is phosphorus. And one of the single greatest sources of phosphorus finding its way into our receiving waters are treatment plants. And so the primary focus on the permitting agency's part centered on phosphorus removal as part of the new permitting requirements. Those phosphorus limits were far less or far below our current permit limits, and our existing treatment facilities were just incapable of meeting them, and thus we were forced into designing and moving towards upgrading our plants to remove that. That's the principal reason for the upgrades, both in the east and west. As you mentioned, the second biggest reason for our upgrades is the fact that we're out of capacity at the west. Marlborough has only a limited capacity within the plant itself to take flows at the plant because of our obligation to provide Northborough with their portion of the capacity. And we're out of our capacity. Northborough still has some of theirs, but it'll also be necessary as part of our upgrades to expand the capacity of the plant so we can discharge additional flow to the river.
Now, right now, to let everybody know where we stand right now, we are in preliminary design for the upgrades to the Westerly treatment plant. Once we get into construction on the west, we will start with design for the east. We've found a technology that will meet the permit limit, so we are moving forward. We had the opportunity last week to go down to Washington to speak to twofold. I want to talk about one of the purposes. There was twofold purpose in going down. One of them was to have a meeting with the Mass delegation and EPA and a lot of people, other people from Massachusetts. Let's talk a little bit about that meeting, our concerns that we have with the permitting process, and who was at that meeting.
Well, the genesis of the meeting, the first part of our meeting in Washington was a set of circumstances that is occurring in the Blackstone Valley wastewater treatment plant district. The city of Worcester, for instance, contributes flows to the Blackstone treatment plant, and one of the concerns that the folks at Blackstone are having is that they received a set of permit requirements 5 years ago which dictated reduced phosphorus limits, reduced permit limits, and they have in fact started the process for upgrading their plant. This has taken more than the 5-year permit period that is typical of NIPD's permits, and during the most recent review of their permits, they were informed that the permit limits that were imposed 5 years previous were in fact going to be ratcheted down with the new permit that they were about to receive.
And they're in the middle of doing these upgrades to meet the last permit requirements, and then are told in the middle, here we go.
That's exactly it. And as you know, Mayor, that was a principal concern for the city of Marlborough as part of our negotiations with the permitting agencies. We honestly don't believe that reducing our phosphorus and reducing our nutrients to the receiving waters is going to correct all of the problems that may exist within the the receiving waters. And we did not want to be faced with the same possibility of having to do major upgrades before we had even paid for the ones that took care of the first permit. That's exactly the situation that Blackstone finds themselves in right now, and it is something that they are taking exception to. Their upgrades right now are approaching $70 to $80 million, and it could well exceed $100 million before they end up with a permit that they find acceptable. So.
We had members of the EPA staff from the Region 1, which is New England region, based here in Boston. Good portion of the Mass delegation showed up at the meeting too. I think we had, what, about 40, 45 people at that meeting?
Yeah, there was a great turnout. It was the first meeting of that sort that I've ever attended, and I've been working for the city longer than I care to admit to. But it was an impressive group, to say the least. All of our Mass congressional delegation, or a good portion of it, was present or had representatives there. We had representatives, multiple representatives from the MWRA. Most everyone who was part of the wastewater collaborative that has been put together in the Worcester area to address principally the Blackstone issue and other treatment plants in the Central Mass area as well were in attendance. And the meeting was chaired by Congressman McGovern. It gave us an opportunity to well identify the issues that we have had for a number of years, Marlborough has had for a number of years, and which are now coming to pass in other communities and in other districts where they're seeing permit limits being reduced.
So we came out of that meeting with kind of a directive that we're going to meet again in 6 months and put together a small working group to kind of address the issues that all of us had brought forth at that meeting in terms of permits and being in the middle. We don't want to be in a situation like Blackstone Valley, absolutely. Obviously, when we talked about dropping the permit, the appeals, that was something I was concerned about. Even not just the next permit, but the permit after that, the technology that we're choosing. Are we going to be able to meet permit limits that'll be ratcheted down with that? I don't want to put out all that money to find out that we're going to have to do more upgrades. So you mentioned briefly that we have formed a coalition of surrounding communities. Springfield is involved, Worcester is involved, the Blackstone Valley. We're involved in this coalition. This group was the one that pushed this meeting with the delegation. I just want to talk about that just a little bit. This group, I think, has been doing a great job, and to get this amount of people together and have that meeting occur, I think was a great win for us as a coalition to get everybody to listen to our concerns.
Yeah, it's not very often you get to meet with the regional director for EPA. So it was a great opportunity. I think if nothing else came out of the meeting, the regional administrator is well aware of our concerns. He should be well aware of our concerns, at least from the City of Marlborough standpoint. But there are other concerns that have been raised by the other sewer districts and the other communities who are now being affected by these more stringent permit limits.
That's great. So I'm really glad that we are part of that organization, and we're part of it. The second part of our trip down was our annual, I call it my begging tour. We go down and apply for the STAG grant to help offset the costs for the treatment plants. Talk a little bit about the STAG grants and what we had gotten last year for the city.
There's very little in the way of federal funding and state funding available to communities to fund these upgrades. As you know, Mayor, when these treatment plants were first built back in the 70s, they were built at a cost to the communities of basically 10 cents on a dollar. We received 90% funding to actually construct these plants, and at the time the plants were built for $3–4 million a piece. We are now looking at upgrades to our plants, which in total could exceed $100 million. And in spite of that, there are no designated federal funding or federal grant programs that could be used to offset some of those costs. So the entire costs are going to have to be borne by our community's ratepayers. And
what's anticipated if we have to fund through the SRF funds, the bonding for the entire treatment plant upgrades. What's the effect on our ratepayers? Potential effect on it?
The debt service, even at the reduced loan amounts that we would be applying for, which are 2% loans, the debt service alone over a 30-year period could approach $32 million. If you tack on that $32 million to the now estimated $106 million that we are looking at the upgrades for, your total cost comes to $138 million. You take that, you divide that by 30, which is the number of years it would be amortized over, and you get a sense of what the increase is each and every year, and it is approaching $4 million per year in increases to a fund that right now only costs $2.5 million a year. So we are looking at anywhere from 2.5 to 3 times the sewer bills we're paying right now.
And we did receive a $300,000 grant through the STAG program last year.
We did.
We both were a little surprised to find out that there was only $550,000 for the entire state last year, and we were the recipients of $300,000. So
that was a surprise,
That was
and obviously we were quite fortunate in getting the lion's share of the STAG grant money that came to Massachusetts.
I think we both, I think you'll agree with me that we owe a debt of gratitude to Senator Kennedy and Senator Kerry for supporting us on the Senate side, Congressman McGovern for obviously putting the earmark in every year for us and supporting our efforts and understanding our efforts for this.
Absolutely.
They really, I want to thank them for that. One of the things that I found, I remember is when we sat down and spoke to Congressman Olver, when he was looking at me talking about, you know, Mayor, you're coming at this piecemeal. You're looking for these small pots of money, but there is no, as you said, there used to be the construction grants program available, which is not available now. So at this point, I think we're doing the best that we can in terms of, although they're small pots of money, we're trying our best to get any and all grant money that's available to offset these costs to our ratepayers in the long run.
That's it. And again, through your efforts, we've been successful on a couple of different fronts. The $300,000 STAG grant last year, and the $10 million more grant last year as well through the state more grant program. That's going to be used to offset a lot of these costs. So those are small amounts of money compared to the total cost, but they are certainly going to go a long ways to reducing the rates that our ratepayers will have to pay.
Well, until we can get a large pot of money, we're going to have to still go after those small pots. So, Commissioner, thank you for being with me today. I appreciate it.
My
and
pleasure.
Thank you for your help and your advice and your counsel. This is a huge issue. It's the largest project in terms of scope and money that the city has ever had. So thank you very much.
You're welcome.
You've been watching Corner Office. I'm Mayor Nancy Stevens. We'll see you next month.